Phrasing is one of those beautiful concepts because it's so freaking simple, and yet it allows us to really level up our guitar solos because it basically teaches us how to take everything we already know on the guitar and turn it into a really unique, expressive vocabulary that's all our own. So it's really helpful for any skill level because it's just taking what you know and bringing it into a style that you can call your own. And that's exactly what I'm going to be showing you today. What phrasing is exactly, how you can use it to your advantage to really help you level up your guitar solos and create your own personal style, and then how you can build on your current vocabulary. So grab your guitar and let's jump in. What's up, guitar players? My name's Guthrie with Easy Guitar Practice. Like I said, we're going to be covering phrasing in this lesson, and this is a great concept that is going to help any and all of you who have been looking to level up your own guitar solos. So if you're soloing and you get like a good 10 seconds, but then it kind of falls apart, or your solos are fragmented, they're not very fluid or expressive, you need this lesson. This is a concept that will help you, massively as you continue on your guitar playing journey. So make sure you stick around for the whole thing. I am going to explain some things really quickly, so feel free to noodle around or, put the video on 1.5 times speed. But I really think it's important to start with what is phrasing so you have the concept down and really understand it when you bring it into your playing. So let's start there. All right, so I'm going to break this into 3 simple steps. The best place to start, step 1, is understanding phrasing. All right, the best way to do this is to compare our musical language to our spoken language. All right, so I'll use an example. If I went up to you on the street, didn't know you, and I just randomly said, "Hey, you're super good looking," right? That would create a certain response for you, right? You'd have a certain thought about what I just said to you. Maybe some of you would say, "Oh, that's really nice." Maybe some of you would say, "That's a bit odd, why are you coming up to me randomly," right? Well, if then, instead of that, same scenario, a stranger on the street, I said, "Hey, you're really good looking. Can I take a picture of you?" Well, now probably majority of you would be like, this is very odd, right? You might all have that same response. This is bizarre. Maybe a few of you would say, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Right? Scenario number 3, if I said, "Hey, you're really good looking. Can I get a picture of you? Because I have a website where I show off my ventriloquism and I want a couple of shots of good looking people on the website because I think it's gonna, help give me good publicity or something." Well, now all of a sudden you have a way different reaction. You're like, "Wait, this guy's a ventriloquist? He thinks I'm gonna be on the website?" Regardless of, most of you saying no, or I would think all of you would say, "No, thanks." You're having a response. My whole point of that example, a little, attempting to be semi-comedic, is that it'll stick in your brain, right? So scenario 1, you have one response. Scenario 2, you have a different response. Scenario 3, you have another different response. Notice I made them all longer. "Hey, you're really good looking. Hey, you're really good looking. Can I get a picture? Hey, you're really good looking. I love ventriloquism." I wasn't trying to hate on ventriloquism. "I love ventriloquism. I want you on my website." Right? I built on each one of them, right? So it had the same starting point, but I built on it, okay? Same thing when we're talking about our musical language. It all starts with fragments and we build from there, okay? So a phrase in the musical sense would be, a fragment of something, and we can put different fragments together to create a long solo and create, something much longer in duration than just a small phrase. But don't think about it as like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Don't think about phrasing like that, right? It's how we create our musical language. The alphabet creates words, creates sentences, creates paragraphs, things like that. Same thing with our musical language. So to put this into a quick musical context, if you like someone like B.B. King, for example, you might steal a phrase of his like this. But if you also like, someone like Santana in that same kind of blues progression, you might do something like this. All right. So now I've got a phrase from B.B. King and Santana, and if I start bringing those together, all of a sudden it's my own musical language. You shouldn't be afraid to, pick and choose your idols and who you want to take from. Once you bring it into your own playing, you've got your own settings on your amp, you like a certain pedal, it becomes more your style, and people will just say, oh, it sounds like so-and-so was influenced by John Frusciante or John Mayer or Freddie King or whoever. Okay? And that's just an important, I think, context to give you inside of music. So taking this idea of phrases, note by note, just like we build words with an alphabet, building our phrases by a note. Maybe it's just a one-note slide that you've heard someone do. And that's the start of your guitar solo, and you build from there. So that's step one in a nutshell, just understanding phrasing as a musical concept. Step number two is now taking musical phrases and linking them together to create longer lead guitar lines or just full-blown guitar solo. So I'll use some of the things I was doing in the example solo earlier in the video to describe phrasing to you and show you why it's such a great tactic, concept, technique to bring into your own playing. All right, so in that solo, I had a main phrase that I was coming back to. That was really just the main phrase. And I took other phrasing concepts to come back to that as a repetitive phrase. That's really a great place to start. Small phrase, build from there. Use it as an anchor. As you get better and better at guitar, more familiar with various people that you like to take from, your initial idea might be much longer. But for now, you can start with something really simple. Like I said previously, it can be just that slide. There's 4 notes. It can be something really, really simple. But to just keep going with the idea, the concept that I had earlier, a blues lick you hear every blues person play. All right, I think oftentimes it gets associated with Stevie Ray Vaughan. He took that from 5,000 people, right? Think about Chuck Berry. Right? That's a concept that every blues player is gonna mess around with from time to time. From there, that's kind of for me a B.B. King thing. Just taking a high note and sliding down, right? Going up an octave, right? If we're in the key of A there, just the 17th fret of the high E string and then sliding down. And then linking it back together. Taking a breath. What can be really helpful, or what is really helpful about organizing things as a phrase and phrases linked together, is A, it allows you to create these longer solos because you're actually breaking things down. Instead of what happens when we're not organizing things as phrases, you'll see somebody wanting to go down here and then they're just kind of letting this concept of like getting in the flow state of, but it can sound choppy, especially for beginners and intermediates, because, well, I'm still trying to get my head around, where does a scale go? What do I know? Instead of thinking, I'm just going to hit this one lick. Right? Taking what you know and organizing it into a phrase. If you only know that pentatonic shape, boom, boom, boom. Boo doo doo doo. I can stay in one area and remind myself I only know this, but I have to nail it because I'm organizing things as a phrase. So we're going to move on to step 3 in just a second, but I hope you're starting to realize that organizing your solos as phrases linked together is already such a great place to start. So often I see beginners and intermediates that I work with in a one-to-one capacity. I'm playing some, backing chords, I'm playing, a simple progression, and it's like, and I obviously did this when I was younger too. I can't deal with any like dead noise. I can't take a breath. I'm just trying to rush through everything I possibly know instead of truly organizing it in a, musical vocabulary. So I really express myself in a meaningful way. Let me play every note I know and just come back to the same lick over and over because I'm not taking a beat, right? So instead of, let me take a breath, have an anchor point to come back to, call and response, things like that. Right? And secondly, it's such a great way to remind yourself what you've already played. If you're just nonstop going all over the place, oftentimes, even though it might feel like, oh, I'm going here, I'm going there, you're doing the same kind of style, just in different places on the neck. You're playing the same, melodies, things like that, just in different areas, instead of really asking yourself, have I changed things up? So in the example I just used, maybe I get, I go through that kind of anchor point for an entire 12 bars of the 12-bar blues. And that's kind of my anchor. And then I say, I'm going to switch it up. And I start using that. And that can be my anchor. And sounds good. But because I'm repeating it, I can dial it in, I can make it more expressive, and then once in a while, you extend things. But remember, you need to have those things under your fingers. You need to have a musical vocabulary to have an arsenal of phrases to pick and choose from, all right? So that really brings us to step number 3. So step 3 is really learning how to create longer guitar solos that are fluid and connect really nicely, even though they're organized as phrases. There might not be as much of a delineation between each individual phrase, and that's where we really start sounding fluid inside of our guitar solos. And then the kind of extra bonus is going to be, how do you build your vocabulary? All right, so let's start a really simple concept, and we'll kind of level up as we go through things. A really simple concept is call and response, right? So if I start here, that can be my first phrase, and then I can respond, and that can be my response. And then I go back to, slight variation. Go back up there to that shape. Right, if I was kind of, riffing with something, bluesy, some sort of 12-bar blues thing, right? So call and response, really, really, simple place to start. So the second thing you can do to create a longer guitar solo is just build from a simple phrase. And I basically already showed you this concept, but let's take something even more simple. So just that one note slide, I know I keep coming back to that, but you can use that to just get yourself going. All right, it's my turn to solo. I can pause because that sounds pretty good, and I can decide, where do I want to go? Do I want to go higher on the neck? Do I want to stay in that, traditional pentatonic shape? If you have other phrases you want to jump to, now you have a little something that you're, going from a starting point, and you can move on from there and go down another path. You can then use it as an anchor though. Come back to it or move on. All right, and I think that brings us nicely to step 3, which is getting a little more fluid with your creativity, less about an anchor point, less about a call and response, and using a variety of phrases, and I know I'm gonna keep kind of showing you some bluesy stuff, but you can use this in any style, but creating some connective tissue with some really simple, 1 or 2 note lines and connecting a lot of phrases you're familiar with. So let's just start right here. That in itself is a phrase. But how do I bring it down here? And how do I bring it here? Right? I didn't really have to move all over the neck, but you get the idea. Is I was bouncing from a few different phrases and creating something that sounds a little bit more fluid and sounds like I'm getting some different ideas throughout a longer solo. So that's where you can start feeling like you're doing more, but don't ever forget that simple is potent when it comes to music. So staying in an area, some repetition, adjusting slightly, that is a really powerful thing to do, especially if you're, where should I take this? I'm not sure. Confine yourself to a small area. Repeat. Nail your vibratos, nail your slides, nail your hammer-ons, your pull-offs, things like that. All right, let's finish strong. Let's finish efficiently with how to really build your own vocabulary in a meaningful way. I will start by saying if you found this helpful, and I'll keep pointing, make sure to like and subscribe. There is already a strong library, I think, of really great things on this channel. And of course, I'm gonna be putting out more stuff. So it's helpful for me if you like and subscribe, get this to more people. And with that, let's jump into how to build your vocabulary. All right. So you obviously have people you really like, guitar players you really like, artists you really like. Try to narrow your focus to begin with. Okay. So if you're sounding a little sloppy, you're sounding fragmented, right? Film yourself. Is that how you sound? If that's the case, zero in on 1 or 2 people, 3 at most, that you really want to sound like. Okay. Again, you can web out from there. But for example, if you love John Mayer, let's just use John's. John Mayer, John Frusciante, Johnny Winter, just to keep it in the John category. Get their songbook, download the tabs, whatever. Okay? Choose one song where you really think their soloing sounds great and you think it really expresses their style. Okay? Go on YouTube, learn each of those front to back, whether it's a solo section or it's the whole freaking thing. Start at 50%. Inside of their playing, it's not enough to just know the tabs. You need to have a feel for their style and why they're doing the things they're doing. So Frusciante's skipping strings, taking kind of a funky approach to the major scale. John Mayer has some cool intertwining of major, minor, pentatonic licks. He's got some interesting, major flavors in his playing. And depending on the song, he's got his own rock approaches that go beyond the blues. Johnny Winter would be a pretty strict blues guy. But what is their approach to all the small things that separate beginners, intermediates, and pros? Their vibrato sounds better than a beginner's vibrato. What are they doing? Watch their hands. Show a video of their, check out a video of their hands. Their slides, their bends, their pull-offs, all those things that they bring a unique flavor to. And then, of course, their approach to the scales. What is unique about their solos, right? Jerry Garcia has really unique chromatic runs that he throws in. Oh, interesting. How can I bring that in? But you need to start by learning their things like 100%. So 50% speed, adjust the settings on YouTube, play along, get it down at 50%, and then speed up. You need to have it perfect before it really becomes a part of your playing and you're making adjustments that sound like, oh, they're influenced by this person, but it's their own thing. Okay, so, yeah, John Mayer, we all know when he's doing kind of a Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, but then he throws in something where you're like, oh, that's kind of his own thing. He's got a Hendrix thing. He's doing like a funky bend where he's letting a few notes ring out. Whoa, that's kind of Hendrixy, and Stevie Ray Vaughan stole that, and now he's kind of stealing it, and it's his own thing. Okay, so I think that's the best way to build your vocabulary. Start narrow, you get those people down, move on. Okay, I like T-Bone Walker, I like Buddy Guy, I like whoever. Gonna get in one of their songs. Marcus King's got some really cool stuff right now. That's somebody I've been thinking about a lot. I think he's really, really great. Anyways, move from person to person, but you've got to get it down perfect to have it inside of your own style, to have it flow out of you, okay? But that's the best way to build a vocabulary. Be methodical, be diligent, start slow, build slowly over time. Just like when you were a kid, you learned the alphabet. Your first written words sucked. They looked weird, they looked bad. Your penmanship got better as you understood the letters, yada, yada, yada. All right, I'll leave it there. I hope this was helpful. Peace and love to you all. Thanks for stopping by.